The cardboard boxes were already on the driveway when I pulled in from my morning walk. 3 of them, brown, taped up with packing tape, my name written on top of each one in black marker. Harvey, 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 like I was being shipped somewhere. I stood there on the concrete in my walking shoes, 67 years old, staring at boxes that held what was left of my life inside a home I had built with my own 2 hands. I know that sounds like a figure of speech. It isn't. I drew the plans for that house myself, back in 1998, on graph paper at the kitchen table. I poured sweat into that foundation. Every doorway, every beam, every inch of drywall. I knew exactly what it had cost me, in money and in years. My son Andre was standing in the doorway. He wouldn't look at me directly. His wife Diana stood just behind his left shoulder, arms crossed, wearing the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Dad?" Andre's voice came out flat, practiced. "We talked about this." I hadn't moved from the end of the driveway. We talked about a lot of things. "It's just not working," he said, "having you here." Deanna touched his arm. Not a gentle touch, a cue. "The papers are in the top box," she said. "You can call a cab or we can drive you somewhere. Your choice." I looked at my son's face. There was something wrong with it. Not angry, not cold, but tight, like a man trying very hard to hold something in. The door closed. I walked to the nearest box and sat on it like a bench, right there in the driveway, at 10:15 in the morning with the November sun barely cutting through the cloud cover. A neighbor's dog barked 2 houses down. A car passed. I didn't cry. I don't say that to sound tough. I just felt too hollowed out for tears. Eventually, I opened the top box. I expected clothes. Instead, my hands found a folded envelope taped to the inside flap, directly under the cardboard lid, placed there deliberately, where only I would find it when I opened it, not visible from outside. My name was on it in my son's handwriting, not printed. Handwritten the way he used to write birthday cards when he was 12 years old. "Dad, if you're reading this," she believed me. "I'm sorry for what just happened. I'm sorry for every word I said at that door. I wrote this letter 4 times before I got it right, and I still don't think it's right. But here is what I need you to know. 6 weeks ago, I woke up at 2 in the morning because Deanna wasn't in bed. I found her in the car in the garage, phone to her ear, talking in a low voice. I stood in the dark laundry room and I listened. She was talking to Kelton, her brother. He's a paralegal, Dad. He knows the legal system, and he has been using it. They're filing for emergency guardianship, not to help you, to own you. Once a court declares someone cognitively incapacitated, their guardian controls everything. The house, the accounts, all of it. Kelton has been building a paper trail for months. He told Deanna that night that they had enough. Missed appointments they manufactured, small things they've been moving around the house so you'd look confused, a concerned neighbor they paid to submit an affidavit. He said the filing would be uncontested because you'd never see it coming. The house is worth $1.6 million now, Dad. That's all this is. I couldn't confront her. She has things on me. At least she says she does. Financial records she's twisted around. And she told me once that if I got in her way, she'd make sure I went down with her. I believe her. I've watched her for 2 years, and I believe her. I needed to get you out of the house before the filing hits. If you're there when it happens, they can use any reaction you have against you. Confusion, anger, anything. The flash drive in this envelope has copies of everything I've gathered. His number is at the bottom of this page. He's expecting your call. Don't use your cell phone. She has access to the account. Use a payphone or ask him to get you a burner. I love you. I'm coming. Andre. I read it twice on that driveway, sitting on a box of my own things in the November cold. My son hadn't abandoned me. He'd just done the hardest thing I'd ever seen a person do. I found the flash drive at the bottom of the envelope, small and black, no bigger than my thumbnail. I tucked it into my jacket pocket, picked up one box, just the one with the letter in it, and I walked 4 blocks to the gas station on Morningside and used the phone at the counter to call the number. He picked up before the second ring. "I've been sitting by this phone for 2 hours, Weston said. "I know," I said. "You okay?" I thought about it. "Not yet." "Get in a cab and come to me. We'll figure the rest out." Weston and I go back to Fort Bragg, 1979. He retired from the Army as a master sergeant and spent 20 years after that as a licensed private investigator. At 69, he's got more gray in his beard than I do and moves a little slower, but his mind is the sharpest thing I've ever been around. He lives in a brick ranch house in Concord, about 20 minutes north of Charlotte, and when I walked through his door that afternoon and sat down at his kitchen table and told him everything, he listened without interrupting once. That's one of the things I've always respected about Weston. He listens like it costs him something not to. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "How far do you want to take this?" "All the way." He nodded slowly. "Then we don't move fast, we move right." That night, Andre came to Weston's. He sat across from me at that same table, and for the first time in the 2 years since Deanna had come into our lives, I saw my son's face without the tension he'd been carrying. He looked exhausted. He also looked free. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said, "for standing there like that, for the things I said at the door." "I saw your hands," I told him. "They were shaking." He looked down at them. "I was terrified you wouldn't open the box." I reached across the table and gripped his forearm. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Then I said, "Show me everything." Andre opened his laptop and we went through it all. Screenshots of texts between Deanna and Kelton, property records, a partial recording he'd caught on his phone one night, where Kelton's voice came through clearly enough to hear him say, and I am quoting this exactly, "Once the petition is accepted, he can't legally contest it without the court's approval. We control the process." And Deanna's response, "What about Andre and Kelton? You let me handle Andre." I listened to that recording 3 times. Then I said to Weston, "What do we need?" He already had a yellow legal pad out. He was already writing. We spent the next 6 weeks becoming ghosts. I became a man who didn't exist. No credit cards, no cell phone, no digital footprint of any kind. Weston set me up in his spare room and bought me a prepaid phone with cash from a gas station in Harrisburg. We reported my absence to no one. We let Deanna and Kelton draw their own conclusions, and based on what Andre told us later, they concluded exactly what we hoped, that I was confused, disoriented, possibly wandering, that I was the very thing they'd been telling the court I was. They accelerated. Week 1. Kelton submitted the emergency guardianship petition to Mecklenburg County Probate Court, listing himself as the proposed guardian. The filing cited 3 fabricated incidents of cognitive impairment, a doctor's note from a physician I'd never met, and the neighbor's affidavit. Andre photographed a copy before Deanna hid it. Week 2. Weston connected us with Miss Farris, an elder law attorney in Charlotte who had spent 30 years fighting exactly this kind of case. She read the filing in one sitting and said flatly, "This is document fraud." The physician on this note retired in 2019 and his license was suspended. Someone used a dead man's credentials. She said it the way you'd read a weather report, like she'd seen it 100 times. That made me angrier somehow than anything else. Week 3. Miss Farris brought in an investigator named Carell from Adult Protective Services, a man who specialized in elder financial abuse and had been building a statewide database of guardianship fraud cases. He told us what Deanna and Kelton were running was a recognizable pattern, operators who use the probate system because most seniors don't understand it and most courts are backlogged. He said these cases almost never get caught because by the time anyone notices, the assets are already gone. Then he looked at our file and said, "But you've got a witness inside the house. That changes everything." Andre was still living there, still playing the dutiful husband. Weston had him wearing a small recording device 3 days a week when the conversations were most likely to happen. It cost him. I know it cost him. He'd come to Weston's twice a week and sit at that kitchen table and debrief everything, and sometimes he'd just be quiet for a while before he could speak. Week 4. Deanna asked Andre to sign a supplemental document supporting the guardianship petition for his own father, said it would make the hearing go smoother, said it was just a formality. He was wearing the device. "So you want me to say my father is incompetent," Andre said on the recording. His voice was very calm. "We want you to say you've had concerns," Deanna replied. "That's all, Kelton, bring the papers." She called her brother by name. Our investigator actually laughed when he heard that. Week 5. The hearing date was set. December 9th, Mecklenburg County Probate Court, Room 4, 9 in the morning, 43 days after those boxes had appeared on my driveway. Week 6, I won't lie to you, the walls were starting to close in. 6 weeks in that spare room, no routine, no purpose. Weston kept me busy. We built a workbench together in his garage. I taught him to make my late wife Lenora's cornbread recipe, which he burned twice before he got it right. But some nights I sat with that flash drive in my palm and thought about the house, about the kitchen where Lenora and I drank coffee every morning for 22 years, about the back porch I added in 2007, the one with the view of the tree line she always said looked like a painting. That porch was built for her. She died in that house peacefully in her sleep in January 4 years ago, and a woman who had never set foot inside it until 2 years back thought she could strip it from me with forged paperwork and a corrupt probate filing. Week 7 brought the darker discovery. Andre came to Weston's on a Tuesday afternoon and sat down without speaking. He put his phone on the table and played a recording. Deanna's voice, "Kelton, I need you to do something about Andre." "Kelton, what kind of something?" "Deanna, he's been distant. He's not answering my questions anymore. If he pulls out before the 9th, everything collapses." "Kelton, you think he knows?" "Deanna, I think he's always known more than he let on. That's always been his problem. Too much of his father in him." "Kelton, so what do we do?" Deanna, after a pause, "The same thing we did with Harvey. We document it. We make him look unstable. We get ahead of it." The recording ended. The kitchen was completely quiet. My son was looking at the table. I looked at Weston. Weston looked at me. I stood up and put my hand on Andre's shoulder. I said, "They just ran out of time." Weston called Miss Ferris that night. She called Coral. By Wednesday, we had a meeting. By Thursday, we had a plan. By Friday, we had everything we needed for December 9th. I wore the suit I'd worn to Andre's college graduation. Navy blue, single button. The only suit I've ever owned that fits the way a suit should. I stood outside room 4 in the Mecklenburg County Courthouse at 8:45 in the morning with my name fully attached to me again for the first time in 6 weeks. Miss Ferris stood to my left, a folder 3 inches thick under her arm. Investigator Carell stood to my right with 2 colleagues from APS. Weston was at the end of the hall with his hands in his coat pockets, watching the elevator. At 8:52, the elevator opened. Deanna stepped out in a gray dress, professional, composed, already looking down at her phone. Her brother Kelton followed a step behind with a slim briefcase. She saw me when she was about 12 feet away. I want to describe what happened to her face in that moment. It didn't collapse. It didn't go pale. It went very, very still, the way a pond goes still right before something large moves beneath the surface. Her eyes moved from me to Miss Ferris to Carell's badge on his belt, and in the space of about 2 seconds, I watched a woman recalculate everything she thought she knew. Kelton walked into her back because she'd stopped moving. I said, "Good morning, Deanna." She didn't answer. Miss Ferris said, "Counsel for Harvey Webb. We're ready to proceed." The hearing lasted 2 hours and 14 minutes. The court heard the forged physician's note, laid against official records showing that physician's license had been inactive for 5 years. It heard Kelton's voices on the recordings describing the process of manufacturing a paper trail. It heard Deanna ask Andre to sign documents supporting the guardianship petition while she was unaware that every word was being captured. It heard Carell testify that this case matched the documented pattern of a predatory guardianship scheme his office had been tracking for over a year, and that Kelton's name appeared in 2 prior complaints. And it heard me. I testified for 11 minutes. I told the judge, calmly, without raising my voice, without a single stumble, about the house I built, the wife I lost inside it, and the morning those boxes appeared on my driveway. I told her what I found inside. I told her what I did next. When I finished, the courtroom was quiet enough that I could hear the heating vent in the ceiling. The judge looked at Deanna and Kelton for a long moment. Then she said, "The petition is dismissed with prejudice. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office and to the state bar for review of the paralegal's conduct in this filing." She looked at me over her glasses. "Mr. Webb, I'm sorry this happened to you." I nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor." Out in the hallway, while Carell and his colleagues dealt with Kelton, who was not In that moment, looking like a man who had thought his plan all the way through, Andre came and stood beside me. He didn't say anything right away. We watched people move through that courthouse hallway, ordinary business, other people's ordinary days. Then he said, "I should have moved faster." "You moved exactly as fast as you needed to," I said. "You got it right." He looked at me sideways. "I let her box up your things." "You put a letter in the box." I paused. "And you put it where I'd find it." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "She always said you were just a sentimental old man." "She was half right," I said. He laughed, not a big laugh, a short one, surprised out of him, but it was real, and it was his, and it was the first time I'd heard my son laugh in longer than I could remember. We walked out of that courthouse together into a cold December morning, and I will tell you the truth about what I felt standing on those steps. I didn't feel triumphant. That came later. What I felt first was tired, the deep, honest kind of tired that comes after you've been holding yourself together for a long time, and you finally don't have to anymore. What came after happened slowly, the way real things do. Deanna was charged with elder financial abuse and conspiracy to commit fraud. Kelton faced charges for document fraud and misuse of legal credentials. Miss Ferris told me the DA was looking at the prior complaints Carell had flagged. These things take time. I'd learned to be patient with time. Andre moved out of the house on Ridgemont Circle, not because I asked him to, but because he needed to. He found an apartment about 3 miles away and called me every Sunday. We had dinner together at least twice a month. Slowly, the tightness went out of his face. Slowly, he became my son again, not just the man who'd been surviving under a roof I couldn't protect him from. The house is still mine. Same house, same back porch, with the view of the tree line that Lenora always said looked like a painting. I still drink my coffee out there, in the mornings when the weather allows. In March, I started volunteering with a legal aid organization in Charlotte that helps seniors understand the probate system and recognize the early signs of guardianship fraud. I run a workshop on the third Saturday of every month. I bring printed copies of what fraudulent court filings look like, redacted, so people can see exactly what the language sounds like. I show them how to read a legal notice. I show them what questions to ask. The people who come to those workshops are not stupid. They are not naive. They are simply people who never thought they'd need to know this, which is precisely what predators like Deanna and Kelton count on. I tell every one of them the same thing I want anyone listening to this to hear. The thing that took me 67 years and a stack of cardboard boxes on a November driveway to fully understand. Your instincts are right. When something feels wrong in your own home, when people who claim to love you are asking you to sign things you don't understand, moving things so you feel confused, making you second-guess your own memory, your instincts are right. Don't let anyone tell you that your age means your judgment is gone. Your judgment is the most valuable thing you've spent a lifetime building. It has more miles on it than anything else you own. Protect it the same way you'd protect anything else you've worked that hard for. Weston still burns the cornbread. I have accepted that about him. And Andre called last Sunday the way he does. We talked for an hour about nothing that mattered and everything that did. A movie he'd watched, a plumbing issue I was dealing with, a restaurant he wanted to try in Noda. Near the end of the call, he said, "Hey, Dad, you doing okay?" And I said, "Yeah, son, I really am." I meant every word of it. That's the part I keep returning to. Every time someone asks me how the story ends. Not the courthouse, not the charges, not even the house. Just that phone call, just that Sunday, just those words, true in both directions, moving between us the way they always should have been. That's the part worth holding on to. That's the part I want you to hear.